Texas just made a massive change to their future schedules. Welcome into another edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I am your host, Matt Galatson. As always, joining me is my co-host, Zach Dimmitt of Texas Longhorns on SI. Zach, Texas made a big decision reportedly today, moving away from their Power 4 commitments, not to Ohio State, not to Michigan, and not to Notre Dame yet, at least, but to Arizona State. According to reports, Texas has asked to be taken out of that series in 2031 and 20. Is it 2031 and 2032?
It's 32, 33.
Sorry, 32 and 33. So far in the future. But they have asked to be taken out of that series with the Sun Devils. And part of it, I would assume, has to do with the 9-game conference schedule in the SEC now. Texas already is going to have arguably the most difficult schedule in the SEC this year. If you include the Ohio State matchup, it's Ohio State, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee, Oklahoma, A&M, on and on down the list. And when you have a series of or when you have that 9-game conference schedule, it really doesn't make as much sense to schedule these big, out of conference Power 4 teams. A lot like the Big Ten has done. The problem is the Big Ten's other, schedule otherwise is rather weak. But regardless, this is kind of big news for Texas because this kind of is going against what we typically see out of them, always scheduling the toughest opponents. Obviously, Arizona State isn't a world-beating, juggernaut or anything like that. So maybe they find another Power 4 team. I don't know. But as of right now, that matchup is gone.
Yeah, Arizona State, I know it's like a million years in the future. I don't know. Will the sun expand and consume the earth by then? I don't know. But it seems like a long time from now. Arch Manning could have 3 Super Bowls by then. I mean, my goodness, this is 2032 we're talking about. But yeah, interesting to see that they made that decision. Notre Dame could come eventually. That change could be made. I personally hope that they keep the Notre Dame game on there because you could suffer a loss and that could hurt your CFP chances for that season. But I personally just love whenever the big boys clash in college football. So yeah, Arizona State, they had a great season. Not this past season, but the year before, obviously, facing Texas in the CFP. I really don't think that they'll reach those heights again in the near future. I just don't see it because that was kind of like a dream season for them. So maybe Texas recognizes that and they want to add a bigger team to that schedule. I'm all for it. But as we saw when the SEC went to 9 games for their schedule, this was kind of something that was going to happen. And then you combine that with, the debate surrounding scheduling big teams in non-con. This was bound to happen eventually. So interesting to see that the Arizona State decision is being made so far away. So I hope the Notre Dame stays on the schedule. But as we saw, speaking with Steve Sarkisian back in early signing day, a few months ago, he said Ohio State, Michigan, they're going to stay in the schedule. Chris Del Conte echoed those words at the town hall. It was like a week or two ago. So those games are going to stay on the schedule, but everything else, they made it clear. Everything else after that is up for debate, which includes Notre Dame. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I mean, that's 5 and 6 years away. So they really are getting out ahead with this thing. We don't even have any other non-con games scheduled for those seasons. I mean, 2029, you have Notre Dame on there, but in 2030, the only non-con game you have scheduled currently is UTSA. So you got to add something there. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But interesting decision, and who knows when the Notre Dame decision could come.
Well, I hope they keep Notre Dame on the schedule. Well, part of me, I guess, hopes that they keep Notre Dame on the schedule. The other part hopes that they don't, because if Notre Dame is going to continue to get this unfair advantage in the college football playoff, with if they're in the top 12, they're automatically in.
Yeah,
I don't want to help them out at all.
right.
So, that's another thing. We'll get into Notre Dame here in a second, but this isn't a massive deal to me. It's not hugely surprising. You keep the Ohio State and Michigan matchups, which are huge matchups that are going to be great for your program in Austin. You don't have to go on the road. You've already done half of it, so you might as well finish it out. And they're resume builders. I think that you have a very good shot to beat both of those teams in the next 2 years in Austin, especially if Texas is as good as everybody expects. But the Arizona State one is, they're trending towards being a lower tier team in the Power Four. They lose Sam Leavitt, they lost Raleek Brown. Both of those go to LSU and Texas, respectively. Jordan Tyson's off to the NFL, so the star power on that team has taken a major decline, and it's going to be very difficult for Kenny Dillingham to build that back up. I mean, granted, he's a very charismatic guy, and he's a great coach, and I think he's going to do very well there, but it's an uphill climb for sure. It's not a blue blood program that you can just rebuild overnight. So who knows what position they're going to be in 5 or 6 years. I mean, hell, it's almost ridiculous to think about, because Dia Bell, who hasn't even stepped foot on the field for Texas yet, is probably going to be in the NFL by the time this game is played.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to think about. But it also brings up the question: do you keep Notre Dame on the schedule? And according to a report from Inside Texas, if Texas chooses to cancel their home and home series with Notre Dame, it would cost Texas $500,000, which they would pay to Notre Dame. It gives Texas until September 9th of this year to make up their mind on that game. And if Texas waits until after September 9th, before the date in 2027, they would owe Notre Dame $1 million, and any time after the date in 2027 will result in the Horns owing them $1.5 million. So I can see the benefits and the the bad, I guess, of having Notre Dame on the schedule. Me personally, I am one of those guys that is always play the best teams and beat the best teams, because that's what the University of Texas is built on. That's what the University of Texas represents, is playing the best and beating the best. And if you cancel Notre Dame, it kind of feels like you're running away from that, because you're using the excuse that you lost to Ohio State, so you didn't make the college football playoff this year, as opposed to what the story, what your narrative should actually be is: don't lose to a 4-8 Florida team in the middle of the season when you're supposed to beat them 10 points. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting debate, but I feel like you should leave it, because you need good teams on your schedule.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different situation, but it's kind of what Notre Dame did. They ran away from playing in the bowl game. You don't want to stoop down to Notre Dame's level. I have been increasingly frustrated with Notre Dame, the way they've handled those things, with the whole CFP ruling in their favor, skipping out on the bowl game. It's just, I don't like it. And so don't stoop down to their level. Uh, I think play the game. Don't run from the smoke, as the kids say. So I just think you got to do it. Yeah, it's tough. I know that's pocket change. $500,000, a million, 1.5. That's pocket change for Texas. But don't give Notre Dame anything. Play the game. If you lose, you're going to lose to a program that is consistently very talented. So there wouldn't be any shame in that. But if you win, you're boosting your CFP resume for that given season. And even that series is still a long ways away. So who knows what the roster will look like for each team. But it's safe to say that both programs will still probably be near the top of college football. So yeah, don't run away from it like Notre Dame did with their bowl game. I know it's a different situation; it's a regular season game, but I just don't like that mindset. And so we got to wait and see what happens with that one. It could come at any moment. when it comes to that thing. But I think it's a little bit, it was a little bit more of a tougher decision than the Arizona State one because ASU is not the program Notre Dame is. So you got to weigh the benefits of potentially playing that game with Notre Dame. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, play the game, beat them, um, prove that you're everything that you want to be. And, this is a quote that I think, and we've talked about this before on my previous shows, and I don't think I've ever talked about this with Zach before, but there's a quote that I think represents the University of Texas really well, and I think that it represents what their mentality should be when scheduling tough out of conference opponents. And it is the pride and winning tradition of the University of Texas will not be entrusted to the weak or the timid. So don't run away from Notre Dame. Don't run away from anybody. In fact, I see that you canceled Arizona State. Schedule somebody else. Schedule Florida State. Schedule Clemson. Schedule USC. Do something like that. Don't give me another, UTSA or Texas State or Alcorn State or something like that. We want the good games. That's what the fans want to see. As much as they bitch and complain about it when you lose one of them, those are the games that the fans want to pay big money for at the beginning of the season. So let's have another one. Let's change gears real quick, Zach. Sticking with football, and then we'll shift to basketball later in the show. Preview the game tonight, but Texas might not be done in the transfer portal. It's kind of hard to imagine because it kind of feels like we're far removed from where Texas was in the transfer portal, like, finishing out with that class. I think it was 17, 18 kids that they brought in, Cam Coleman, Hollywood Smothers, on and on down the list. But it appears they're not done. According to a report from Inside Texas, former Baylor edge rusher Kamorian Morgan, who is a former South Oak Cliff standout as well, has been academically cleared and is now eligible to transfer again, and the Longhorns are in contention. According to Morgan, he has been in communication with defensive end coach Alan Clark and has expressed heavy interest in joining the Texas program. This is a big deal because I kind of felt like they left a little bit of meat on the bone with the portal, even though it was one of those deals where they had one of the best classes in the entire country. There were still a couple things I think that they needed to add. An edge rusher, like a little bit of depth at edge rusher, was one of those things. And this guy is really good and really talented. So if you can bring him in, add him to that, that already really deep and really talented room with Colin Simmons and Colton Bosick and Brad Spence and Zena Imeazulu and all those guys, then I think it would be a excellent deal and a big win.
For sure. And people sometimes forget that, yes, the portal is closed. You can't enter it at this point. But if you've already entered the portal, it's free. It's free reign. Texas could add 10 more players for all I care. If they wanted to, that's just how it works. They obviously won't, but it's kind of surprised some people when this came up. But you can still add players this late into the cycle, and it's obviously quieted down a little bit. But adding some depth pieces at this point, which is what it would be, you're not going to get a starting caliber player out of the portal at this point. But Morgan, certainly a talented guy that you can build around for the future, because he doesn't have tons of reps under to his name at this point. Last year Baylor, 6 total tackles, no sacks. He doesn't even have a picture on ESPN's official stat page, so this guy is he's grown into his own. He's still got a way to go, but former South Oak Cliff product, as you mentioned, based on the way that the eligibility or the what's listed for his eligibility from high school, I believe he played with Malik Muhammad at South Oak Cliff. I believe they crossed paths at least one season. So interesting connection there. Obviously, Malik Muhammad is no longer going to be on the roster, but interesting connection there. Texas offered him out of high school, so they've already been building that relationship. Makes it a little bit easier when you're recruiting a guy out of the portal who's a 4-star, according to 24/7 Sports' composite ranking. So lots of talent there. 6'4", 230 when he was in high school. So it's been about a year or so since that cycle. So he's definitely going to be growing. And then you mentioned the edge rushing unit already. Lots of talent there, and if you can add some depth, certainly wouldn't hurt. Colin Simmons, Lance Jackson, those guys, Colton Vosick, even Justice Terry as well. That's a really talented group. But adding some depth there wouldn't hurt because, as I mentioned yesterday, with some of the offensive line additions, the portal isn't. You have to treat the portal in a way like high school recruiting, where you're getting guys that, yes, you're getting starting caliber guys that are going to contribute right away and potentially only for a year. But you have to build through the portal for the future as well. And some people think that's only for high school recruiting, but certainly you have to utilize the portal that way. And I think Steve Sarkisian and the staff are certainly doing that. So Morgan would definitely be a future depth addition sort of guy. Probably not going to start any games next season if he were to come to Texas. May not get tons of reps, but 2027, after a whole year of growth with the staff and being on the roster, he could potentially step into his own. So nothing's official yet. Obviously, it's not like he's committed to Texas. So, but just with the thought of that in mind, seeing what that could look like, it's definitely intriguing. But like with the scheduling stuff, we just got to wait and see what happens with these things. Nothing's set in stone, but I'm definitely intrigued by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's a player who comes in at a position that would be very nice to get some additional depth in, and edge rusher is critical in Will Muschamp's scheme as well. I mean, you can't get enough edge rushers in the SEC. That is an absolute certainty. And with Kamorian Morgan, he's now up to 6'5", 251 pounds, according to 24/7 Sports. And his scouting report is very interesting to me as well. So, according to Gabe Brooks of 24/7 Sports, he comps to DJ Johnson of the Carolina Panthers, and he's considered a scheme versatile edge defender who possesses physical traits that could lead to a full-time hand in the ground role, or at least part-time 2-point rush snaps. Primarily plays a traditional 4-3 defensive end role for his. This was in high school, but will at times align as a wide rusher in a 2-point stance. Even has occasionally dropped into short zone. He's rangy. He has a rangy build that should hold significantly more mass if desired. And he is an above average functional athlete who also plays basketball. So it sounds like he could be a very versatile player should he end up choosing Texas, which there's plenty of time for him to make his decision now that he's got his academic issue figured out. He was committed to Virginia Tech at one point, but it sounds like he could be a very versatile player along that defensive line. He could play the big defensive end role. He could play edge rusher behind Colin Simmons. A lot of different things there. And and at Baylor, he played 10 games as kind of an outside stand-up edge rusher, so he can do it all. He has heard from several other Power 4 programs, including Indiana, Michigan State, Mississippi State. I believe SMU is also kind of in the mix there. Kyle Ward is Morgan's former defensive coordinator at Oak Cliff, and he is now on the staff with SMU. So they could have an advantage there. But regardless, bring me all of the edge rushers you can possibly bring me, especially in this scheme, and I'm going to be happy with it.
For sure. Colin Simmons, Lance Jackson, Colton Vosick, those guys are going to dominate the headlines. So if Morgan does decide to come to Texas next year, he has to understand that he's going to probably have to wait a season to really hear his name be called. But injuries happen. You would obviously hope that doesn't happen to any of those guys. Injuries happen. You never know, who might be able to step up in any given season at any given position. So, you mentioned the SMU connection. That is certainly one to watch. He's already a Dallas kid, so being able to stay at home certainly has an advantage. But Austin's not too far away. Come on, just head down south 35 a little bit. Come see what's up in Austin.
Yeah, and just to give you kind of an idea real quick of the depth chart, um, you start at edge rusher, which is like the jack slash buck position, and it's Colin Simmons, Colton Vosick, Brad Spence could fit into that position as well, and then a young Smith Arogbo. And then at the other bigger like traditional defensive end position, it's Lance Jackson, Justice Terry, Zena Zulu, and then a couple of true freshmen. So like a depth piece to put on either side would not hurt at all, and it would be something that I think would be a really good deal. So anyway, let's change gears completely. We're going to go to basketball now. Texas is on an absolute heater at the moment, winning 4 straight. Now they host the LSU Tigers tonight in Austin. Zach is going to give us a preview of that, what to watch for, players to keep an eye on, and all the things. So stick with us after this quick break, and we'll be right back.
This episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast is brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. Custom Built Trailers is the largest in-stock trailer dealer in Mississippi with a variety of options to choose from flatbed goosenecks to bumper pull equipment trailers and car haulers to enclosed trailers and basic utility trailers. We do a little bit of everything. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for in stock, we can typically have your custom built trailer built in 7 to 10 working days. 0% financing options are available, and we also deliver out of state. So give Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi a call at 601-722-9581 today and let us take care of your hauling needs. Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If we don't have it, we'll be glad to build it.
Good. Thanks to my good buddy Dalton for being the first sponsor on the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. We greatly appreciate that. Zach, Texas has won 4 in a row on the hardwood. They are now a 9 seed according to the newest bracketology rankings. So they are firmly in the field at this point, ahead of Texas A&M, as a matter of fact, who has dropped to a 10 seed. But it's interesting because I don't think a lot of us expected Texas to be in this kind of a position at this point in the season. I think most of us assumed that they would, in fact, be on the opposite and be like, all right, well, we're not going to make the tournament in our first year. Now it looks like if they can just hold serve and kind of split the rest of their games here, they're going to be a tournament team. But it seems like, with how successful they have been, how good they have looked on both ends of the floor as of late, I wouldn't be shocked to see him, rattle off a few more in a row. And it certainly helps that LSU, one of the not so premier teams in the SEC, is coming to the mood tonight.
Yeah, LSU, they had a good start to the season. I believe they started off like maybe 10-0, 10-1, something like that. Their first loss this season, they started off 8-0. Excuse me. Their first loss this season came to Texas Tech, and that was a blowout. And it all kind of rattled off from there for them. They started off 0-4 in SEC. They actually beat Missouri, who Texas just beat as well. That was a good win for them. And they beat South Carolina, and that's it. They've lost every other SEC game this season. They've had a few close ones. They battled with Tennessee and Knoxville this past weekend. They only lost by 4 on the road to a really good Arkansas team, which is actually kind of impressive final there. They only lost by 1 to a solid Kentucky team. So they lost by 3 on the road in College Station A&M. So this team has not had a great year at all. LSU basketball is not what it once was. But despite that, some of these results are certainly ones that Sean Miller needs to be pointing out to his team for tonight's game, because the Longhorns have been on a tear recently, that's for sure. But it could all come crashing down if you suffer what would potentially be a quad 3 loss, because it'd be coming at home to a team that I'm not even sure where they are ranked in the net right now, but it certainly isn't top 75. So this could be a crushing loss for Texas if they don't bring their all out focus, as if they're facing the Florida Gators tonight. So I personally think that the Longhorns will come out ready. We've talked with some of the players in recent weeks, and some of these guys, this is their last season. They can't let any of these opportunities fall through their fingers. Tremont Mark, Kendall Weaver, some of these guys, Jordan Pope, this is their last time playing college basketball. And so being a loss like this could potentially put you back into the bubble, and then you're in danger of missing the tournament. But if you take care of business, you're really putting yourself in position to control your own destiny to the NCAA tournament. That's all you can really ask for. So, yeah, this would be the first time in 6 years. If Texas wins, this would be the first time in 6 years that the Longhorns have won 5 straight conference games, SEC or Big 12. So that's pretty impressive. I mean, when you're in the Big 12, if you're Texas, you're facing ranked team after ranked team after ranked team. And so rattling off 5 straight wins was always pretty tough. Even when Texas went to the Elite Eight in 2023, they didn't even have a 5-game conference winning streak then. So that's pretty impressive what this team has been able to do. Granted, it has come during a stretch where some of the opponents have been a little bit on the softer side. But you had to take advantage of those games and separate yourself from the bottom feeders of the league. And Texas has certainly done that while also holding on to those other 4 ranked wins that they have this season. So big opportunity here tonight just to keep the momentum rolling before you really head into a tough stretch where you go at Georgia and you host number 12 Florida, and then you go at A&M, at Arkansas, and then you kind of close out the season on the soccer side hosting Oklahoma. So big opportunity here.
Yeah, and listen, these wins that they've had as of late, Oklahoma, pesky team, as that's the best way I know how to describe them. They've won their last 2 games against Vanderbilt and Georgia. You look at Ole Miss, they're on a massive down streak right now. I think they've lost 7 in a row. But they started off SEC play with a close loss to Arkansas, and then they beat Missouri and Georgia. So, that's another one there. And then Missouri has beaten Florida. They've beaten Kentucky. They've beaten Auburn. They've beaten Texas A&M. So, these teams, just because they're the bottom feeders in the SEC, doesn't mean that they can't come out and beat somebody. So all of those wins, I think, are good resume builders for Texas in their own way, especially the Missouri win, because I think that's a big one. But if you look at what they have done lately, I think it was right around the Tennessee game. Like after that game, most people were pretty down on this team. Because they just can't hang with these teams that have bigs that can bang you around down low, and they don't have a 4 that can match up with any of these teams. And then after that, Texas goes actually on a very impressive run. They beat Alabama, they beat Vanderbilt, the latter of which they absolutely destroyed Vanderbilt. And then they lose close ones to Texas A&M and Kentucky. They rebound with a huge blowout win over Georgia. They lose a tight one to Auburn, and now 4 in a row. So you've been competitive throughout basically your entire SEC schedule outside of the Tennessee game. And that is something that I think is very important to remember here. Texas is playing well, and they're playing well consistently. And that's something that's extremely important. And Sean Miller has done a great job of galvanizing this team and figuring out a way to make them work together. But before we get out of here, Zach, why don't you give us like a quick rundown of some of the players to watch out for LSU, so that so that the listeners can kind of get an idea of what to watch tonight.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is they lost their star guard, Day Thomas, to a season-ending injury, so he's not going to be playing tonight. So that actually hurts the Tigers quite a bit. But Markel Sutton, he's a forward for LSU. Interesting name to watch. Leading rebounder at 7.8 per game. If you're in danger of potentially suffering an upset loss at home, losing the battle on the boards is where it potentially could begin. And so Markel Sutton certainly a guy to watch there. because of his rebounding ability. But yeah, Day Thomas, as I mentioned, he was their leading scorer, and 15.3 points per game. He's out, so you don't have to watch out for him. That's for sure this time around. But Max McKinnon, he's right behind Thomas in scoring, 14.5 points per game. This guy is he's an Australian guy, so some of these international guys from Europe typically get a lot of the attention, but some of these Australians can really play as well. Against Georgia on February 7th, he had 26 points, 10 of 10 from the foul line. Don't foul this guy. Don't put him at the line. Texas has a problem with fouling, as we have seen. They're not a perfect team by any means, and that's certainly one of their weaknesses. Is they've gotten better about it in recent weeks, but don't put this guy at the line because he's going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit with Thomas out. And so I think that if you're going to suffer an upset loss, giving the opposing team lots of chances at the foul line, especially one of their best foul shooters, is not a good recipe for success at all. So those two guys certainly ones to watch as well. LSU has some experience off the bench. This guy may not play a lot tonight, but PJ Carter, he's a guard who has 5 years of experience under his belt. Maybe the Tigers try to find some sort of spark to because what the hell, we're already 2-10 in the SEC or whatever. Let's just see what we can do. So PJ Carter, could he come off the bench and have a role? He only is averaging 3.5 points per game this season, but you never know what might happen when a veteran guy steps onto the floor when he's got lots of experience, to his name. So just a few guys to watch for LSU. Overall, Texas should be able to take care of business. But just with the way they've been playing, I don't see how anyone's going to be able to guard Dalen Swain. I don't see how any of these guys are going to be able to guard Modest Titus. So unless Texas just fouls the living hell out of LSU and commits tons of turnovers and can't hit a single three, then this game might be a little bit closer. But I think this could be one of those games that Texas uses to boost up their metrics a lot. So you want this to be a blowout so those metrics look a lot better to the committee on Selection Sunday, and this is one of those games where that could happen.
Yeah, and also it's worth talking about that. I know that this game is against a lowly LSU team that is missing their best player and all these things, but it's also a must-win for Texas, not only because it would probably not look great if you lost at home to a team at LSU's level, but the next 4 games after that are all extremely difficult. Your 3 of your next 4 are on the road. You have Georgia at Georgia, Florida at home at the Mood, and then you go on the road in back-to-back games against A&M and Arkansas, and then you obviously close out the season with Oklahoma. So very, very important that they get this one and they get themselves one step closer to that 20-win mark. But we will be back tomorrow to recap the LSU game, preview kind of what's going on the rest of the week in Texas basketball. We'll talk more Texas football. Please do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to our channel, comment on the video on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, all the things to help boost our engagement and help our podcast grow, because we can't do it without you guys. And I guess we'll see you next time.